Indiana basketball falls to Purdue 87-66. And while the loss definitely hurts, it really is just disappointing.
You are Locked On Hoosiers, your daily podcast on the Indiana Hoosiers. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network. Your team every day.
Welcome in. It's the Locked On Hoosiers podcast. I'm your man, Jacob Goins. I appreciate you making Locked On Hoosiers your first listen each and every day. We are part of the Locked On Podcast Network, which is your team every day. Thank you so much to all the everydayers out there. Thank you so much for being here each and every day when we have new episodes. If you're not subscribed on the YouTube channel, what are you doing? Become a part of the group. Become a part of the family here and the crazy things we're doing at Locked On Hoosiers. If you're on any of your audio platforms, we are free and available wherever you get your podcast. Today's episode is brought to you by LinkedIn. These days, every new potential hire can feel like a high-stakes wager for your small business. That's why LinkedIn Jobs helps find the right people for your team faster and for free. Post your job for free at linkedin.com/lockedoncollege. Terms and conditions apply. Indiana loses to Purdue 87-66, and while the loss is it hurts, right? It sucks to lose, and you hate to lose to Purdue. It's more disappointing than anything, right? And that sounds like the phrase we all heard growing up from our parents when you accidentally break a vase or you do something that they told you not to do, or you make a mistake, right? They're not mad. They're just disappointed. And that's exactly how I feel about this loss for Indiana basketball. And I think a lot of you feel this way as well. I said yesterday, and I meant this was a must-win game for Indiana, and they didn't get it done. Now, not only did they not get it done, they barely gave themselves a chance in this game. They did a couple of times, but gosh, not very many of them. And it really was just a disappointing result, disappointing performance, and disappointing result. We're going to talk about that on the show today. We're going to talk about likes and dislikes, what's coming up next, how can the Hoosiers respond after this beatdown they took at home, all that on the show today here on Locked On Hoosiers. Purdue, the number 2 team in the country, they played like it, didn't they? They win 87-66. And you start looking at what happened. We knew this was going to be the case. This wasn't a surprise to anybody who watched this game or previewed this game or was waiting for this game. But Zach Edey is as advertised, folks. He was 11 of 23 from the floor. He played 36 minutes in this game. Their bench didn't do a whole lot. They had a guy go for 20 minutes and a guy playing 13, and they didn't average. They gave them 8 points. Pretty much everything else was from their starters for Purdue. But in 36 minutes, Zach Edey was 11 of 23 from the floor, 11 of 12 from the free throw line. We're going to talk about the free throw numbers in just a second. Had 14 total rebounds and gave them 33 points. And I talked about this on the preview episode about what can Indiana do to stop Zach Edey. And they tried to go at him. They tried to be physical. They tried to almost punch him in the mouth and just try to scare him a little bit inside of Assembly Hall. Well, guess what? That didn't work. Officials didn't want us to do that. Mackenzie and Mgbako picks up 2 early fouls. Kel'el Ware picks up 2 early fouls, and the first half was done. The game was over at that point, right? They have to go to the bench. They barely play anymore, and Zach Edey has a field day against the Hoosiers in the first half. They couldn't do anything. Malik Renew is only one guy. He can only play so much. He can only stop so much of Zach Edey. And man, he was everything and more. I've seen people say he's better than he was last year, and I think he looked like it against us there in Assembly Hall. Also, 2 guards that we thought were going to have a big day. They absolutely did. Ware, he played 28 minutes, had 19 total points on 5 of 6 shooting, 4 of 4 from downtown to help the Purdue Boilermakers go 7 of 19, 5 of 7 from the line as well, giving him 19 total points. And then Jones, we knew he was going to have a big day. Who was going to guard him? It was a combination effort, but it didn't matter. And 32 points, he gave him 7 of 12 from the floor, 3 of 7 from downtown, and gave the Purdue Boilermakers 17 total points. So there's 3 starters, right? 33, 19, and 17. You're not going to beat that. You give up 87 points on your home floor. You're not going to beat that. And it was a game of runs for Purdue, right? They got up big. Purdue or Indiana kind of came back a little bit. Then in the second half, Indiana really came back, cut it all the way to 9, did it twice, and then they let Purdue go on at the end of the game. You compare that to what Indiana did. This is where we really start getting into what was disappointing. We'll get likes and dislikes coming up in a minute, but just the disappointing factor here, Malik Renew, 8 points. Kel'el Ware, 5 points. Gabe Cupps, 5 points, which you guys know me at this point. My expectations for him are not great, not high. I think he played a good game, but again, you got 5 points out of him. Now, that 3 was big, and it was at a big time, so credit to him for knocking it down. The Hoosiers couldn't really build anything off of that afterwards. And then your bench. I mean, yeah, you got 7 from CJ Gunn. You got 4 from Anthony Walker and 5 from Peyton Sparks. That's fine, right? That's fine. Xavier Johnson, non-existent, played 19 minutes. I'm not really sure what we're going to do moving forward with him, but he was obviously non-existent. 0 of 5 from the floor, 0 of 2 from downtown, had 2 rebounds, had no assist. I mean, just a non-factor here. Your leading scorer, surprisingly enough, was Trey Galloway. And so if there's something that's not disappointing, and I'll bring this back up when we do likes and dislikes, but Trey Galloway showed up in a big game again. Credit to him, right? 6 of 13 shooting, 3 of 7 from downtown. I think he should have quit shooting a little bit. 2 of 2 at the line. That's better than anybody else did on the Hoosiers. Had 4 rebounds, 5 assists as well. So in my book, he accounted for at least 27 points. That's all you can ask Trey Galloway to do, folks. That is a great game from him. That's exactly what he should do every single night. Why does he wait for a huge game to do it? I don't know, but that's what happened here. And Mackenzie Mgbako had 15 points. Another good game from Mgbako. And man, if he didn't get in foul trouble, he could have had another career night here. 6 of 10 shooting, 2 of 4 from downtown, grabbed just 2 rebounds. That's disappointing to me. Malik Renew had 9. Kel'el Ware had 6. Only 2 rebounds from Mgbako. That has to improve, and scored 15 points. So he didn't pick up a foul the rest of the game, which is pretty surprising. But I'll say this, and I don't really have to tell you this, but I'm going to say it anyway. Trey Galloway and Mackenzie Mgbako cannot be the only 2 guys that score double digits. If they are the only 2 guys that are going to score, you're going to have a hard time. And I think it was a combination of Purdue's defense and Indiana just being poor offensively. And that's disappointing to watch. The defense played okay, right, until Purdue just kind of went on those runs. But the Hoosiers couldn't ever get any closer than 9. Couldn't ever get any closer than that because they couldn't make shots when they had to. And that's just, it's sad. It sucks. It sucks to watch because expectations had gotten pretty high. Not saying that we all were just fully expecting the Hoosiers to win, but we felt good being at home, being in this big opportunity against our rival, and the Hoosiers couldn't get it done. Indiana loses 87-66. We'll talk likes and dislikes coming up here on Locked On Hoosiers in just a second. Today's episode of Locked On Hoosiers is brought to you by LinkedIn. At the start of the new year, every small business owner is asking themselves the same question. What's the one move that I can make that'll make my business to the next level in 2024? LinkedIn Jobs knows that your success all depends on the team you surround yourself with. That's why LinkedIn Jobs has created the tools to help find the right professionals for your team faster and for free. My business, my company that I work at full-time, we've hired numerous people using LinkedIn Jobs. Posting it is easy. Finding people is easy. It takes little to no time, and you can literally post the job for free. So LinkedIn Jobs is where you need to be. LinkedIn isn't just another job board. LinkedIn has a vast network of more than 1 billion professionals, which makes it the best place to hire. When you want to achieve those goals in 2024, that's why you need to use LinkedIn Jobs. You've got to find the right people to achieve those goals, and using LinkedIn Jobs, it's the ranked number one in delivering quality hires versus leading competitors. Thankfully, with LinkedIn, the process is intuitive, quick, and easy. Post your job for free at linkedin.com/lockedoncollege. That's linkedin.com/lockedoncollege to post your job for free. Terms and conditions apply. Welcome back into Locked On Hoosiers. I appreciate you making this your first listen each and every day. If you're on YouTube, comment down below. How do you feel? What are your thoughts about this game? What are your thoughts about this loss? Are you disappointed in what happened? Are you kind of That's pretty much what I expected type of area? Or are you just fired up here? Because losing to Purdue is never fun, and losing by over 20 points on your home floor, that's never fun either. Comment down below if you're on YouTube, or tweet at us or post at us, whatever you want to call it, on X at Locked On Hoosiers. Want to see from you on there. Indiana falls 87 to 66. And let's get into likes and dislikes. We do this every time, every post-game show about Indiana basketball. And as you can assume, as you would expect, there's a lot of dislikes here. There's some likes, sure, but it's pretty hard for me to find the silver lining in this one, as Indiana gets beat by 21 on our home floor inside of Assembly Hall. And that's the first dislike for me. Is you want to talk about a disappointing performance. You put up 66 in your home floor, and you can't protect your own house. You've let Kansas come in here now, and now you've let Purdue come in here. And this gave us a much better chance to win. I think we can all agree with that Indiana playing at home was a much better team and a much better opportunity than what we're probably going to see at Purdue coming up in a few weeks. That game kind of scares me, I'm not going to lie. But what also is disappointing, and something that I liked going in, was Purdue's 2 losses. And we talked about this on the show yesterday. Both of them were on the road in the Big Ten. Indiana could have been another team to do that and just didn't show up to play. And I think they got thrown out of their rhythm early. And that's a huge dislike for me, is the fact that the officials, they decided, we're not letting anything fly. Not in our game, not in our watch. And Indiana got screwed because of that. They had a game plan, believe it or not. I think the Hoosiers actually had a decent game plan. They said, all right, we are not going to let Zach Edey dictate what he wants to do. We are going to dictate what Zach Edey does. And the officials, the Zebras, the guys in the stripes weren't having it. They just weren't. And so 2 quick fouls for your big guys, and you're done. You're out. And Indiana had no response, right? We know that this team struggles to get in the lane if it's not one of the big guys. I think Galloway had a good night there. That's a huge like for me. Once again, I got to give him credit. I don't always do it, right? Because he normally doesn't give us stuff to give credit for. But Trey Galloway had a huge game. And that's the performance you want to see from your senior guard, right? That's the thing you want to see from a guy that's been here for so long. 17 points and knocking down some shots. He was the best one from the free throw line, but it wasn't very well. He was only 2 of 2. Why? Because Indiana was 4 of 9 from the free throw line. You shot 9 total free throws in a 40-minute basketball game. How is that possible? How is that possible? Right? It's a combination of a couple things. I think it was a lack of aggression from Indiana, but I also think it's a lack of blowing the whistle for the Hoosiers in the eyes of the officials. You cannot tell me you only shoot 9 free throws in 40 minutes of basketball. That's impossible. Compared to the 27 attempts that Purdue took. That's unacceptable. It's ridiculous. You cannot convince me of that. Okay? Now, 27 of those total for Purdue, 12 of those, almost half, were by Zach Edey alone. And look, he probably gets fouled just about every time because of how big he is. I understand that. But the fact that Indiana only goes 9 times at the line and you only make 4 of them, not that the other 5 points would have helped, but still, right? You've got to shoot the basketball better. Indiana made 1 more 3 than Purdue did, but you shot 24 of them. This team can't shoot the 3 very well. You got to quit shooting them. And I know you're kind of taking some desperation threes trying to get yourself back into it, but still, man. So a huge dislike at the free throw line. Tell me if you've heard this story before. Indiana gets out rebounded again. Wasn't as bad as I thought it would be, if I'm being honest with you. You lose that battle 42-34. I thought it would be worse. I didn't think we were going to win it, but I thought it would be worse. So, nothing crazy there. Indiana passed the ball well. Both teams had 14 assists, and it's just, I don't know, man. I don't know. The other problem, too, Indiana turned over 10 times. That's fine. Some were very costly, right? Some were very, very costly. But you only force 8 turnovers against Purdue. And I think that, again, that's a testament. 4 of them were steals. And so the other 4 were off ball or dead ball, whatever you want to call them, turnovers. But you have to have a team struggle on the road. And shout out to Purdue. I disliked it, but I'm sure Purdue fans liked it and college basketball fans liked it. Purdue played well on the road. They did exactly what they had to do. And believe it or not, they proved that they're a top 5 team in the country. They proved that they're number 2 right now. They're still a really good basketball team. I just dislike the performance that Indiana put up, the fight that Indiana put up against them. They showed a little bit of it. They showed a little bit of heart, a little bit of fight there in that second half when they cut the lead to 9, when they did it twice, but then they just gave up and they folded. They folded. And the things that I said Indiana could not do were the things that they had to do. Basically everything I said yesterday, I was right. And not to toot my own horn, it was just kind of some obvious things. Stay out of foul trouble. That didn't happen. Got to make some shots. That didn't happen, right? You shot it 65 times and you shot 41% from the field. That's not going to get it done. Knock down your free throws. Didn't do that. You didn't shoot any and you didn't knock them down when you got there, right? And your big guys have to have big games. And Malik Renew and Kel'el Ware just didn't do that. They didn't do that. They were restricted in this game, especially Kel'el Ware only playing 26 minutes. That's not okay. That's not okay. But when you get in early foul trouble, that's what happens. That's how it goes. And so while Indiana came in trying to push around and be the dominant team here and kind of bully Purdue to keep themselves in the game, Purdue wasn't having it. They weren't having it. And they came in and they dominated, and they got a win inside of Indiana, inside of Assembly Hall for the first time in a while. And outside of the Auburn game, it's the most points Indiana's given up, right? Most points that they've given up in a while. And man, it's just disappointing. It's frustrating, man, because if you haven't noticed already, I am really, really bad at getting myself hyped up, especially talking to you guys here on the show. I really get my hopes up here. I get my hopes up in situations like this. I was convinced that if Indiana played a dang near perfect game, that they could have won here. If they went in and made little to no mistakes, played like they did against Kansas, and got Purdue off their game, I was convinced the Hoosiers could win here. But that didn't happen. I got my hopes up. I'll admit, I got my hopes up here. And I was hoping they could do something in a game that I considered a must-win. Because now, as we're about to get into our next segment, looking ahead, man, it doesn't get any easier. It gets tough, man. It gets very, very tough for this Hoosiers team and this Hoosiers program. Now you're going on the road. If you couldn't win the big one at home, how are you going to win it on the road? Now, you're taking, air quotes if you're on audio, a step back in competition. Not by much, but you are. You're not playing number 2 Purdue. You're just playing more top 15 teams on the road, Wisconsin and Illinois. So overall, Indiana, they tried. Purdue's just good, man. They're just good. They're better. They're a better team. They're better coached. They're better talented. They're more talented than Indiana is right now. And they came in and they dominated, and they showed why they're the number 2 team in the country. Indiana falls to Purdue 87-66. We'll begin to look ahead coming up here on Locked On Hoosiers. What's coming up next? How do you bounce back? How do you respond? How in the world are you going to beat Wisconsin or Illinois on the road if you can't beat Purdue at home? We'll have all that coming up for you in just a second on Locked On Hoosiers. Today's episode of Locked On Hoosiers is brought to you by FanDuel. The NFL regular season has wrapped up and the playoffs are here, but there's still time to get in on the action with FanDuel, America's #1 sportsbook. Got games coming up this weekend, some good ones in the divisional round. Right now, new customers get $150 in bonus bets, guaranteed when you place a $5 bet. That's $150 in bonus bets, win or lose. Place $5 down on any game. Packers, 49ers, Ravens, who cares? Place $5. You're going to win and get $150 just for doing it, win or lose on your bet. The app is easy to use, and there are many different ways to bet. You can do live same-game parlays. You can go in the Parlay Hub, which is the best way to find popular parlays. Find bets in the new Explore tab, and much more. So visit FanDuel.com/LockedOn and make your first bet a layup. FanDuel, official partner of the NFL. Today's episode of Locked On Hoosiers is also brought to you by Jace Medical. I know we come to sports to escape from some of the crazy realities of real life, but can we talk just for a minute about preparing for real life? According to the FDA, pharmacies are running out of antibiotics like amoxicillin right in the middle of the worst flu season in over a decade. If you ask me, that's scary. I can't imagine a more helpless feeling than if my grandparents or my parents or my siblings got sick while a supply chain issue kept them from life-saving medication they needed. Thankfully, we'll be okay because of Jace Medical. The Jace case is a pack of 5 different antibiotics to treat a long list of bacterial illnesses, including UTIs, respiratory infections, sinuses, skin infections, among others. This stuff could happen to any of us. Visit jacemedical.com and complete your physician encounter. It will be reviewed by a board-certified physician, and your medications will be dispensed by a licensed pharmacy at a fraction of the regular cost. It's never been more important to be prepared than today. Go to jacemedical.com. That's JASE medical.com and use offer code LOCKEDON to get $20 off your first order. Final segment here on Locked On Hoosiers. I appreciate you making this your first listen each and every day. If you're an everydayer, thank you so much. I am grateful for you. You're the reason we're here, and we're growing at a really, really fast rate. So thank you so much for that, for making this your go-to spot for all things Indiana athletics. The Hoosiers fall to Purdue 87-66, and now we start asking the question, all right, we got to move on from that. How in the world are we going to do it, and what's coming up? And those are 2 pretty difficult questions to ask when you look at the schedule for this Indiana team. Now 12-6 overall, 4-3 in conference play. That Big Ten record beginning to even out a little bit for this Indiana team, because now you're in your last few games, man. You are in your last 5 games. You're 2-3, 2-3 in your last 5 games. Imagine if you didn't get that win against Ohio State, which it very well could have been a loss, right? Same thing with Minnesota. They played you pretty tough too. You're 3-2 or 2-3, excuse me, in your last 5 games. And coming off a 21-point loss, your reward, you get to play at Wisconsin on January 19th. That'll be on Friday. And then you get to play at Illinois. Thank God. All right. Thank the Lord, or whatever you believe in, that after that Wisconsin game, the Hoosiers get a week off. You get a week in between that Wisconsin and Illinois game. So the hope here, right? The hope is that the disappointment does not continue, right? You hope there's no hangover. You hope there's no negative effects or negative impacts on this team. And you don't want this to carry over into this Wisconsin game, because it's very easy to do that, right? You not just got punched in the mouth a couple times. You got knocked down, dragged out, thrown out your own building against Purdue. How do you move on from that? And we've seen this already this year, right? Look at the Auburn game. You were able to come back after that butt whooping in Atlanta, and you almost take down Kansas, who was the number 2 team in the country at the time, right? So coming off of this game, you have to have that same type of response. You have to, because if you don't, that's a really good Wisconsin team. A Wisconsin team that has a huge record over Indiana. The Hoosiers have not won in Madison since the Civil War, it seems like, right? It's been years since the Hoosiers have won in Madison. And in case you're unaware of what Wisconsin's doing right now, yeah, they are 5-1 in conference play. Their only loss, a questionable one on the road at Penn State. So it's not easy to win on the road in the Big Ten. That's why what Purdue just did is even more impressive, in my opinion. Not take out what Indiana did or didn't do. That's a heck of a win for the Boilermakers on the road in this conference. So they're 5-1 in conference play, and they await the Hoosiers on Friday night. But again, as I mentioned, Indiana gets a week off in between Wisconsin and Illinois. Wisconsin now up to 11 in the country, Illinois 14th in the country. That is on the 27th. That's a Sunday, I believe. You've got to find a way to compete in that Wisconsin game. I'm not saying win it. I'm not saying you have to win it. I would love to see that. I would absolutely love to see you win this game. But if you can show me something, show me a little, I don't know, a little fight, a little care in this game, like we saw at times in the Purdue game. Wisconsin's not Purdue. They don't have a Zach Edey. They've got good players, and we're going to talk about that, but they don't have a Zach Edey. They don't have a guy that can win the ball game straight up and score 30 points whenever he wants to. So if the Hoosiers can at least compete and build some confidence and maybe even find something offensively, then you have an entire week to work on that. Figure it out. Get the kinks worked out some more. I hate that we're saying that in middle to late January, but that's where we are with this Indiana team. But if you can just find something at Wisconsin on Friday, you give yourself a great chance to win on the road at Illinois. You have a whole week to rest, work on things. We're really going to figure out what type of coach Mike Woodson is in a whole week off, because I promise you, oh my gosh, I promise you, if this team does not get any better from Wisconsin to Illinois, I will riot on this program if you don't already as the fans. Those things have to happen. So that's what's coming up. That's what the Hoosiers have in front of them. This is the toughest stretch of the season, Purdue, Wisconsin, Illinois. It gets a little bit easier after that, but there's no easy games in this conference. We know that. Look at college basketball. There are no easy games at all in conference play. I don't care if it's the Big Ten, SEC, Big East, MAC. I don't care, right? There are no easy games in conference play, especially when you go on the road. And that's what the Hoosiers have in front of them. Got to bounce back. Put it behind you. Let's have a similar response that we did after the Auburn game against Kansas. We have a chance to get a big win. Still looking for that quad one win. You're 0-5 now in quad one games. It's time for the Hoosiers to figure it out. It's time for them to get serious and figure out, accept some of the issues they have and work around them. Because if they don't, it's going to be a long rest of the season. And the offseason, it's going to be about a month longer because they're not going to be in the NCAA tournament. That's going to do it for today's episode of Locked On Hoosiers. I appreciate you making this your first listen each and every day, your go-to spot for all things Indiana athletics. Thank you so much for being here. I know it's tough. I know it's disappointing. I think brighter days are ahead, maybe, he said with a question mark. I don't know. We're going to find out. Indiana falls to Purdue 87-66. If you're on YouTube, subscribe to the channel. It's free. It helps us grow. And it really does just really help us out in growing this audience and growing this show and getting more people in here taking in the content. I appreciate you being here. Like the video as well. That helps us with that too. If you're on your audio platforms, you can subscribe on there. Turn on notifications so you never miss an episode of Locked On Hoosiers. We post daily Monday through Friday, and then weekend episodes on bonus episodes for reactions, extra content, all that good stuff. So be sure you turn on notifications as well. We'll be back tomorrow, Hoosier fans. So until then, stay safe, and I'll talk to you later.